The 5.1 Spiral Abyss usage rates are out. We're going to go through what is expected, what is surprising, and one or two things that are downright shocking. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. I think the biggest shock to me is just how ubiquitous certain characters are, and that they always are. Like, especially Zhongli and Novelette. It's like, if you have these characters, you are using them, period. Farina makes sense because she's a support. I guess Zhongli makes sense because he's a support, but he's rarely the damage ceiling for a team, which we've talked about. I am really interested for the next Spiral Abyss for Zhongli, though, to see what happens to him, because this Abyss is a Geo Abyss. You really want to play Geo on the second side. It's very good for multiple, like, the entire second half is like completely catered towards Geo. If you don't have Geo, it's not that great. You can play some Overload stuff if you're an Overload Clorand or Raiden enjoyer, but other than that, you pretty much really want Geo or Overload Arlecchino. So Zhongli being this high is crazy, still higher than Xiaolonen, although it is very noteworthy that she's this high immediately. It makes sense, being a Kazuha level buffer that works in multi-wave, which this Abyss has, and good against Geo. Granted, she doesn't apply all that much Geo, so she's not actually that good on the second side. Someone like Zhongli is much better. I would expect most of the usages of Zhongli to be on the second side because she just doesn't apply all that much Geo. She's fine. You can get by, it's helpful, but it's by no means Zhongli or Navia or even Noelle levels of Geo application or Ito for that you really want on the second side if you're trying to brute force with Geo. But yeah, Novelette, Kazuha, this all makes sense. Very strong characters going to be used often. Bennett being so high, considering that so many people have Novelette and are using him, and now we've got other HP scared characters like Mulanni, Bennett being so high is just a testament to how broken he is. Navia, it's a Geo Abyss, it makes perfect sense. Arlecchino, really great broken character. In my last tier list, and I did update my last tier list, I ranked Mulanni in tier 0 and Arlecchino in tier 1. I have since changed my mind because it takes resets, it takes its inconsistency. Mulanni has so much inconsistency that I think she's on the same level as Arlecchino, so I moved Mulanni down a few spots and moved Arlecchino up one. Both of them are strong enough DPSs that, in my opinion, they belong to tier 0. But this just shows the reason why Arlecchino is so good. Even though she has a really high ceiling, potentially higher ceiling than Novelette in single target, and in some AoE scenarios, but mostly Novelette's king of AoE, of course. The ease of use that someone like Arlecchino or Navia has above someone like Mulanni, who's very tricky to use, very tricky to get the team setups. I maybe expect Mawika to bring up the usage for Mulanni, because it's absolutely nuts that a character this strong and that dominates, speed runs and clears so heavily, that she would be so much lower. Like, I would expect her to be lower than these characters, but being all the way down at 16% is just crazy. It means like 84% of people who have Mulanni aren't using her to 36 star because they're saying, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to do the easy clear with Novelette. Which, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Easier to use characters are going to dominate the usage rate in meta. Chiori really high, obviously it's a Geo check on the second side. Yelan very high, she got a good buff from Xiaolonen and is still used on Arlecchino teams. She's used on so many meta teams. Nahida, still pretty high. I was really on the fence as to whether I wanted to consider her a tier 0 or tier 1 character, but she is Dendro, Double Hydro, Hyper Bloom, Alhaitham spread, still Nilou, still excellent teams. I don't know, I'm right on the edge. I could go either way. Baiju, quite a fall from grace for our Baij man. Today we're doing as the best unit 2. Okay, not that far. He was at 53% in the previous one, and now he's at 37, so a 15% down. He was very often played with Novelette, so now Xiaolonen is often being played with Novelette, and that's basically why. Xiangling, Kinich, really looking good in this Abyss. Much higher than he was before. Or actually, no. This is his first Abyss actually being counted. So he's quite high, which is, I mean, it's not too surprising. He's very fun and very easy to play. I think the real surprise is just Mulanni. It's just shocking how low Mulanni is. I'm curious, do you guys regret pulling Mulanni? Do you guys wish you didn't get her? Is she too weird and too tricky? Because I totally agree that she's very annoying to use. Like, she's up here with the huge asterisk that she is annoying AF to get the proper resets for. Very satisfying to get them, but yeah. Can itch pretty darn high though, regardless of comparing to anyone else. 31%, nothing to sneeze at. Xingqiu still very high. Lots of people don't have Yuan. Still a very broken character, enables a lot of great teams. Raiden, mostly for national, we've learned is how she's still mostly used. Very, very high. Very, very consistently one of the most used characters. So consistently in A tier every single time. Emily. Emily's an amazing character. I found myself using Emily all the time. She just slots into so many great teams. Hytham's still an amazing carry. Hyper Bloom's so easy to play, so flexible, so strong for free to plays. Kuki for Hyper Bloom. Wriothesley really getting a bump. It could be that I mentioned how Xiaolin works with crowd teams, and I didn't prefer them as much to the Farina variants, but it could be that Xiaolin is pumping up the Wriothesley numbers, and that people are actually really liking Melt Wriothesley with Xiaolin, because you might want to run Farina with Novalet on the other side or whatever. So Xiaolin, you know, that's what I can see. Yai Alhaitham, Yai Tainari, Hu Tao, still a very strong character. Hu Tao guide coming next. That's our next video. Shen Yun, Sijween, surprisingly high. Of course, remember that this is usage rates per ownage, right? So I don't want to give the full disclaimer every time I do one of these videos, but this means that 16% of people who have Sijween use Sijween to 36 star the Abyss. And then same with Mualani, Cloran below, Ito below. I'm surprised Ito is this low given that it is a Geo Abyss. I guess lots of people giving up their Ito or just using Navia or just using Zhongli or something else. Ito Xiaolonin double hydro, that's really big buff to Ito, but still doesn't affect his usage all that much here. Zhao, Kokomi being lower than Sijween is just cracks me up. But of course, a lot more people have Kokomi, and the people who pulled Sijween got her fairly recently. They're probably trying to use her. Shenhe becoming like a 6-star character in rarity lately. 4-star in pull value, 6-star in rarity. Childe, this isn't the best Childe Abyss. It's very single target, especially with the first half, so it's still fine for him, but it's not the best Childe Abyss. Wanderer, Albedo on the second side. Chevreuse, pretty high. Farazan, pretty high. Ayaka, Linny, Charlotte, Fischl. Always a little surprising to see Fischl so low, but like I said, it's not that I think she's like overrated specifically, it's just that the amount of meta teams that she's on isn't all that many. Like Aggravate isn't super meta. Overload Clorand, people are not huge fans of. I get great clear for multi-wave, it's definitely meta, specifically for multi-wave. But in normal scenarios, it's definitely not. It's definitely just a solid team. It's still so surprising though to see her this low. Ayato, Dea, Nilou. Yeah, once again, not a great Abyss for Nilou. Toma, Tainari, Jean, Sino. Here are the top teams. As expected, Xiaolonin has replaced Baizhu on the Novalet teams, and Baizhu still getting most of his usage from Novalet teams, from I guess people who decided not to get Xiaolonin or using him on the other side. I'm very curious to see whether or not that usage will drop in the future for Baizhu, because his Dendro isn't doing anything for the Novalet team. He's just being a healer. Like, that's all he's doing. Just a healer and comfort, nothing else. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's gotta drop off out of this team. This team it just goes to show how broken Novalet is, really. That he can just run one basically completely dead slot. Not that Baizhu isn't comfy, not that I don't like Baizhu. It's just that this isn't even where where his strengths shine the most, because his Dendro application is one of his biggest strengths. But the refreshing shield is really nice. With enemies doing so much damage, it can be better than Zhongli to have a refreshing shield than a single shield. Alhaitham, the third most used team, very impressive. Navia with Zhongli, probably because they're using Xiaolonin with Novalet on the first side and then using Navia Zhongli on the second. Zhao, Ito, but not the Xiaolonin Ito. I wonder if people have discovered it yet, or if they're just sticking to this one. I mean, in this Abyss, it makes sense that this Ito team will tear through the Abyss. On the second side. Navia Xiaolonin, Arlecchino with Zhongli Vape on the second side makes sense. Navia with Xiaolonin and Farina. Yeah, because the other one was with Xiangling. I prefer Farina, but Xiangling is good too. And then we got a couple different Kanich teams, one with Toma, one with Dea, neither with Xiangling. Yeah. Ayaka Freeze, traditional freeze, very impressive. Go you guys. And then it's out of view for you guys, but Arlecchino Mono Pyro with Zhongli and Xiaolonen. I really like that team. Pretty interesting stat, by the way. I normally like to go into the app, but it's not working for me right now, so I'm just trying to kind of scouring Reddit to find more information about what's going on. So this is really fun. 40% of Novelette owners have C1, and C1 is an absolute massive, massive increase for him. I'd be super curious to compare this against all of the other characters. One of these days I'll get the app working properly and do that, but that is really, really interesting.
Hey guys, why?
Oh, I'm ripping Jamie's video. Not his video, but I'm using some of his info. I have him linked in all of my descriptions. Jamie's an awesome speedrunner and theory crafter. Go check him out. As you can see, most Xiaolonen users have 77% have C0, with a bunch of people going for C2. You can see big changes across. This is the rate change. So what characters are used more or less. So Navia, way more. Chiori, way more. Novelette, more. Ito, a bunch more. Zhongli, more. Farina, more. And then going down, we're seeing Mualani with a substantial drop-off. Childe with a big drop-off. Xiangling with a big drop-off. Alhaitham, Baiju. The Baiju one is the most predictable to me. Yelan with a drop-off. I think that's one of the biggest things, that the reasons why people don't want to play Mualani is that Xiangling is just such an absolute pain in the ass to play with. So with a solo pyro, she needs so much ER, and it's just so annoying to get artifacts to do that. So it totally makes sense. Finally, overall character ownership rates. Kazuo being owned by 95% of players, Farina 93. Lots of people chose Tighnari from the selector. Lots of people chose Jean, Mona. It makes sense. All this makes sense. Nahida very owned. I'm surprised more people don't own Xiaolonen, although it's only been one banner and only part of one banner. So I'm imagining that it will go up over time. Raiden, it's really I gotta say, it's really impressive that Raiden is so highly owned, and she has a consistent, very high usage rating. Like, that's very impressive to me. And that her most popular team is Raiden National, which arguably has the least benefit to having Raiden C2. So even at C0, very impressive. Novelette, pretty high. Ayaka, wow. Ayaka, Kokomi, Yai, very high. I guess people really simp for these characters. Arlecchino, yoimiya, yeah. Well, that's that. I found this quite interesting. It's really interesting. To me, this is very important information to go through for me, because it lets me know what other people are actually practically using, not because I'm a bit more tryhard than the average player. I wouldn't say I'm as tryhard as lots of theory crafters and lots of speedrunners in terms of the way that I play, but you know, my bias towards Mualani, for example, it shows I'm willing to do some resets, which is why she seems so broken to me. And I have lots of ER on artifacts, so she seems so broken to me. But other people not playing her as much, you know, that's why she's way lower in usage rates. So it's important for me to look at these to be in touch with what people are actually using. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What does this square with what feels right to you? I imagine most of you guys are not quite as tryhard as me, but more tryhard than the average bear, and a bunch of you guys are even more tryhard than me. So let me know your thoughts. I thought this was super interesting. Take care. Bye for now.